Our first review of the day is going to be for the series It Welcome to Derry. It Welcome to Derry there is a prequel series. It's a prequel series focusing on the movies of It, not really the book of It there. This is more focused on the history and kind of lore of It Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 there. It's still oh yeah.
I was just gonna say, I think you'd be surprised how much, and not all. They're definitely doing some original stuff here, but I think you would also be surprised at how much of the circumstances of this actually are talked about in the book.
Yeah, there are some things they incorporate in the book, like there's the Black Spot massacre there that they do have that was referenced in the book that they do bring to life here. It's more fleshed out here in the show. So they do, yeah, like I said, bring certain elements there of King and also the King universe there. They also incorporate this into the show. And it seems to be part of a grander plan for, I guess, a larger King verse, I guess, that they're doing maybe in the future. And then, like I say, expanding more roles. Like, for example, Dick Halloran in this, who was referenced in the book, but didn't have that big of a role in the It novel there, to my
Yeah,
understanding.
it's just said that he was at this event, but you don't really get like a ton of context. All you get in the book is that this was, the end of this particular feeding cycle. There is always some sort of mass death and tragedy. And actually, in the opening credits, you see the other ones, the one from the 1930s and the one from 1908. They're all visually depicted in like the opening credits sequence for the show,
Yeah.
which we'll get into that more later. But you get a whole bit about like there being like an air force base in the town, and you get like kind of a body count of how many people died during this time, and some of people's whose parents would have been kids at the, so that stuff's kind of all there. But then this show is bridging it with all this extra context and actual like more in-depth kind of character stuff.
Yes. And you bringing that up, so it focuses on the character. You have Pennywise there, who is the villain there, who we saw in the It films there, who is the main antagonist of this It franchise there, and you do have Bill Skarsgård, who is returning as Pennywise character there. So that was pretty great. People heard that. Bill Skarsgård is also an executive producer on this as well. And the person who's bringing this show to life on HBO Max, you have Andy Muschietti, who did the movies It Chapter 1 and 2, along with his sister, Barbara Muschietti. So you have Pennywise who feeds in cycles. Every 27 years, he returns there to feed on the town of Derry, Maine, that they're the citizens there, infect the citizens with fear, with paranoia, anger there. He usually eats the children there, loves the taste of the children there of the town. And then the setup of this is you have a young couple there with their son who traveled to Derry, Maine there, this is played by Taylor Page. You have people might know Taylor Page. She's been in such things as Toxic Avenger. She was in Zola there. She's been in some other stuff there as well. She was in the Beverly Hills Cop movie as well. The XOF, she was the daughter. Then you also have Jovan Adepo there, who's the husband there as well. He's been in some other things there as well. He was in something like, I think he was in Mother was the movie he was in with Jennifer Lawrence. If people seen that, the Darren Aronofsky film there. I believe, wasn't he in that Nazi movie?
The one that was like almost repurposed into a Cloverfield film, and then it like got changed again before it came out. Was it Overlord or something like
Yeah,
that?
Overlord. Yeah, he was in that as well there. People also know he was the son of Denzel Washington in Fences. He was getting yelled at all the time in Fences there as a young man. So yeah, he's a United States Air Force major there. So he's moving there to town for his new assignment.
And
Oh yeah.
you've seen those characters previously to the show because they're the grandparents of Mike in the actual movie.
Yes, they are. Yeah, you do see them there briefly in the movies It there with that. And they have a son, yeah, Mike as well, who we see in It Chapter. So there's some characters who you see younger versions of there. For example, we have Richie's mom, who we see, who's also in this as a young girl.
Did you clock that before they like said that was the case? Like, did you kind
No.
of catch the? Because it was like the episode or two before the last one. I was like, I started noticing the glasses, especially. I was like, that just seems maybe weirdly like similar, and then it ended up being
Yeah, I didn't know because I didn't remember the mom's name from It Chapter, and I didn't really remember Richie's last name from It Chapter 1, so I didn't really remember there.
I do
Uh,
greatly enjoy the idea that Pennywise has this feud with a 12-year-old before he's even born, though.
yeah, he's holding on to a grudge, and yeah, we're gonna get into that, like how his powers kind of work here, and how that's kind of perceived in the show. But yeah, you have this family who's moving into town there, and him being part of the this military base there in Derry, Maine. He starts to notice that there's a secret project going on that they're working on, and what is that? And that has to what it has to do with Pennywise and what it has to do with this town and what is the ultimate goal. And you have the head of the army base here, who's the colonel, who's played by James Remar.
You
You
know,
have him in this. Um, so yeah, it's about all these things. It's time for him to feed. You have the military for their own needs of what they want from Pennywise. Also, you have a new losers club that we have here that are trying to investigate the deaths of all these different of their classmates, their friends that have happened. That nobody, of course, nobody's gonna believe them that they're seeing these demons and flying bats and all this other type of stuff. So they have to do the work themselves to uncover what's really going on. So that's kind of the setup you have there of this It Welcome to Derry show. And it's just funny that this show is out right now. People have been talking about that. That you also have this, and then you have a a show that was heavily inspired by the work of Stephen King in Stranger Things, and this final season happened there, and both appeared in the same year. Um,
and the first season of Stranger Things back at the beginning was 2016. Am I remembering that right?
yes,
And then the first of It movie with Bill Skarsgård came out in like April of the very following year. Like
yeah,
just a
2017.
yeah. So that's kind of interesting that that came out so close to the start of the show, and then this has come out right at the end of the show.
And one of the kids from Stranger Things was in it.
That's true.
Yeah, yeah, Finn Wolfhard was in it. Yeah, I was like, well, you already got the look. Let's just drag you in here. You got the glasses and everything now.
I'll
I mean,
say,
it's
even at the time of that first movie, I did, after watching Stranger Things, and I liked the first season, I really did. But even then, going into it, I was like, okay, but this is obviously like a better version of the same thing, right? Like, I walked out of that movie saying that like right away.
so. What are your thoughts, man? Welcome to Derry.
Well, we talked about those first two episodes already, a little while back, and I'd say that I think the show kept up all the positivity that I had from that, rolling through pretty much the whole show. I do think that I'll bring up negatives first because I don't have that many of them. One thing is I do think sometimes, and I don't know if it's Andy Muschietti specifically or like what special effects department. I think sometimes it looks great, and then that's true. But then sometimes I think in particular, I want to say it's episode 4. I think this was there's a scene where they're riding their bikes through a cemetery and there's ghosts. That it is kind of making them see and shape shifting into, and I did think that some of the background like green screening and stuff and that scene in particular just didn't look all that great. So there's sometimes like a little bit of a back and forth with the special effects. I think most of the time they look pretty good, and I think especially in the second half of the season they're pretty polished. But just a few times in the first half there was some CG that was like a little I don't know. Some of these things don't totally look real or blend in properly. And then because again it's a small thing relative to the whole of the show, but I do think that the military stuff is kind of the odd man out as far as like a story arc or a plot thread that can, I think, especially as you get to the end, feel a little goofy and like a little incongruous with the rest of the show. That being said, though, I think everything else here is I think working pretty good. I think the cast of child actors here are really solid, which is not necessarily easy to make happen. I think that the way that it actually is shown and functions within the series feels like the closest to the book I think the character or the creature ever has, just in terms of sheer kind of power and just how much it's able to manipulate the reality of everything going on around it. Like that to me this season feels like we've really kind of brought the idea of this to life best that any time it's happened so far.
Mm. It's interesting with this show, and I was thinking, this it's 8 episodes, and we don't get Pennywise right away. We get him. I think he makes his first appearance, what, in episode,
It's like episode 4 or 5,
yeah,
I want
towards,
to
like,
say.
the middle way of the season, we
Yeah.
get, Pennywise. So they don't just, they wait their time to kinda tease it out, so before we fully actually see him there, which I did like that they did do that. And I think he's more threatening and imposing here than even in, I think, the movies of it, chapter 1, and seeing kind of like all the people that he kind of takes out here. And then also they do some episodes where they do a backstory, like how he became Pennywise and stuff we got hinted at, a little look at in the movie
And I
of
think
like,
we'll get more of that in future seasons too.
yeah, because like you said, the intro of the show, which people seem to really love the intro of the song. I saw people really, I don't know, TikTok and remixing it and dancing to it. People really like the
You
intro
get the
to the
trap
show.
remix of it, like
Yeah. People doing the same thing with even the movie. I remember with like, You'll Float Too, like
oh
people remix,
yeah. Huh.
yeah. So
I do
people, I don't
remember that.
know, something about that, I guess. But yeah, so there,
Pennywise up in the club, man.
yeah, I mean, he's got the dance, he's got his own move, the jerky or whatever the hell you call that shit.
Might have to
Um
change the name, but
Yeah. But yeah, so he's doing that, and yeah, so he comes along and they tease it out. And I think he's more kind of imposing and scary here. And I think a lot of stuff that they do with him, and like I said, exploring him, the lore of him more. And like you said in the intro of it, they have already confirmed this already. We're gonna get prequel shows to this prequel where it's going to be set basically in another feeding cycle of
yep.
his. And you see like in the intro you see animation of like the robbery there.
Yeah,
There's a,
that's 1935, I believe, is the Bradley Gang massacre, and then
yeah,
1908 is the Ironworks explosion, which is the same year that it took the Pennywise identity from Bob Gray and stuff. So that third season will kind of be right in that same time. So I bet we'll see more even of those sort of flashback characters.
yes, yeah, so maybe we'll see that there. And then even the one of the characters mother, it's the character's name. I think her name is Lily, right? She was the one with the mental health issues, and then her
Yeah.
mother was the one that was there at the Bradley Gang massacre,
Yes.
which they cut from the show, but
Mhm.
they did release that online. There's like a little like a behind the scenes thing of them filming that of her talking to her mother, and then yeah, she was actually there. So there's some characters also from this show that connects to the past as well. Um, yeah, but, so you got that kinda going on. Also, we have a new cast of, like I said, a losers club here. I already mentioned Lily, who's a girl that's struggling with her father. Her father, recently passed away. He died in a factory accident there. He worked at a pickle factory, which Pennywise loves to remind her of there.
Yes, he does.
Um, he's got that. Then you also have Marge there, who eventually will grow up to be the, mother of Richie there, who's one of the part of the Losers Club in the films there. So she has a rift going on with Lily because what happened, and she got put into a psych ward, so that makes her kind of an outcast. And then she's trying to hang out with the popular girls, so there's a little bit of that rift going on there. Then you have a Rich in this show, who I guess she, because was so inspired by him and loved him, she named her son after him. But you do have a Rich Santos in this, who shows up, and then he was cool. I liked him quite a bit in it there.
I liked him quite a bit, but I did also at one point I had to laugh just a little bit to myself of a kid that young having like such a like just I know exactly what to do in this extremely chaotic situation, and my nerves are like steel, and I'm like ready to, there was like a preparedness that I was like that great character, but I did think like it seems maybe a little unrealistic of a kid that young to be like this on top of what's going on.
Yeah. I mean, he's a cool kid. He knows how to play drums. You know what I mean? He's playing
Sure.
drums in a juke joint. Like man, he's got all the skill, all the talent. There's him, and then also you have Will there, who will eventually grow up to be the father of Mike, or the
Yeah.
yeah, the father of Mike, yeah,
Yeah,
from
and
the
I mean, if you know the It Chapter 1 and kind of Mike's story and that, and how he's living with his grandparents, it sucks because that kid is very likable in this show, but the whole time you're like, I know what happens to you.
yeah, that's a sad thing, yeah, and, especially what he survives in this. So, yeah, he's Will in this, and then you also have, Ronnie in this as well there, who, she's a girl that her father's in trouble that he's been accused of, he's been basically they're blaming him for all the murders that Pennywise has been doing, so he's getting railroaded, and, they're trying to put him in Shawshank, which also is another King reference there, Shawshank Prison there. You got that going on. So each of them has their own kind of reasoning for teaming up together to find out kind of what's going on and what's kind of happening here. How did you like this Losers Club compared to the one that we saw in the movie, how they're portrayed? And did you see with their, how do you think they, if you did think so, make them distinct in any way from the ones that we see in the movie?
Yeah, no, I mean, I do like them. I think what makes them distinct compared to the group in the films is that these characters are a lot less organized, a lot less like cohesively together and on the same page about what to do. Because in the actual like main It story, the kids in that, I forget there's a term for it, that I think comes from the Dark Tower books, but there's a term for like a group of people that like collectively together like have a sort of like kind of have like a group version of The Shining, and
Mm,
that the kids in that original story, they kind of have that, and that's sort of part of what's protecting them a little bit from Pennywise and why he's so unable to really kind of deal with them. And that I think speaks to what you said about how you feel like this greater sense of kind of imposing danger coming from Pennywise here, and it's because Pennywise in this show generally, and the one exception is sort of a, I think that's sort of like a roundabout way of him having like a loss, because from the perspective of the 27-year feeding cycle that is described, this is a story about Pennywise winning and completing his feeding cycle and kind of getting everything it wants. So there's a lot more of a, oh, these kids actually could really kind of be on the chopping block at any moment.
mm. Well, the first group of kids were. You had the first group of Loser Club that we had. You think, oh, okay, this is the kids that we're going to be following. And then in the first episode, that gets done away with really quickly, which surprised a lot of people that they did that.
And that was a great hook. I think that was a great hook, because I think that's totally the expectation, right? Is that, oh, here's your group for the season. I don't know, maybe you'll lose one or two at the most. But especially being so close to Stranger Things, which I have not watched in a long time, but I have certainly heard people talk about how sort of there's a sort of reluctance to kill characters off, and that the cast maybe got a little too big at a certain point. Here, immediately that concern is thrown out the window.
Mm, yeah. Like you said, like Neil said, welcome to his ultimate fuck them kids show there. And it's a
Absolutely.
great scene in a movie theater and everything like that that really works quite well. Um, and the show balances really well, I think, between doing the adult storylines, doing the kid storylines. I think they do a good job at that. Um, I think that, yeah, the military stuff. I mean, once James Remar like lays out his plan of like why he's doing what he's
It's like,
doing.
I want to make Pennywise the president of the United States, and I'll stop at nothing to get him the vote.
I mean, it's his kind of reasoning. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. So it's like his reasoning seems to be like there's chaos in the world and disorder, and he wants to release Pennywise because he can cure all that. He can get rid of all, I guess, the bad people who have a lot of fear. I think is kind of the general gist
it's
of.
it's weird. This is to me the weakest part of the show, because I was just laughing at some of the stuff that his character was doing in the last two episodes. That felt ridiculous. But like, so in the town of Derry, there's this sort of like disaffected sort of kind of brain fog that the people in the town will have to what's going on, right? Both in terms of like more real world human on human violence, and then also to like what the creature's doing and how people, whether people can like perceive it or not. And if they can, right, it can kind of hide itself and make people forget and not really be aware of what's going on. And I believe that the solution that he's trying to have is, if Pennywise can cover the entire United States, then everyone will sort of turn a blind eye and like sort of have a facade of normalcy, right, that covers
Mm,
up this darker undercurrent of violence that is, but that would still be happening. It would just that people were sort of
mm.
brain fogged into not noticing it, which is what's happening in the town. And here's where that gets a little weird, because most of what the show does, totally in line with the book and the mythology of it and how the supernatural actually works and stuff. Big thing that the show totally makes up though, is that so there's a group of like a tribe of Native Americans, and they're in the films, right? They bring them up. They call them the children of Maturian, which is referencing the sort of the turtle god that is in the book that
Hello?
is yet to make its way in any adaptation.
Uh,
Um, so that there's this Native American tribe that is both in the film, right, and in the book. They're called the Children of Pretorin. That's a reference to the turtle god that has yet to make its way into any adaptation. I think they're afraid of what normies and casual audiences might think of that. Um, but in the show, they give this whole thing of, they have this like barrier, this magic barrier made up of these rocks, is basically space debris from the meteor that it originally crashed to Earth to, and they've got them all around the perimeter of like the town, trapping it into this area. That is not a thing from the books at all. It could leave the town Derry anytime it wants to in the book. It's just far too fat and satisfied and content with its feeding ground to ever care about leaving. It
mm,
has no ambition to go anywhere or to do anything other than what it's doing. There's other types of creatures similar to Pennywise, like the King Crimson and the Dark Tower, or their Crimson King. And there's even another creature in another book that feeds on like laughter instead of fear. That's like a whole other story that also seems to be a very similar type of being. But yeah, so the idea in the show that like not only does this guy want Pennywise to be like in like official political office, but he also is like, we have to break this barrier to make this happen. And I'm like, just going by like the understanding of what it is, it wouldn't leave if it could. It doesn't want to like go on mass destruction. It doesn't want to go anywhere other than here. It loves Derry. It is very happy where it is.
mm. Yeah. Okay. So that's something, okay, they added for the show. Okay. And you do see, like you said, this Native American people there who have bestowed upon themselves to be keepers of this, these kind of rocks there, because it's the only thing that can deter it there. They kind of use it to ward off it. And like you said, they kind of create this blockade for him so he can't leave anywhere. I don't, and that's not mentioned, I don't think, in the movies at all or anything like that. That's
No, no, because they definitely came up with that whole thing for the show. And
okay.
and technically, if we want to go by the logic of how it came to exist within the broader mythology, that rock is cosmic turtle vomit. I'm pretty sure.
Okay, interesting. And then you see the effects of this because it's something that wants to go home. It wants to go back to where it is, and then one of the characters has it, and it's basically like Gollum with the ring. Like it kind of warps your mind and all this other stuff. You see Lily, the character, she holds a, and it kind of plays with her thoughts and makes people think that she's coming after her there and everything like that. How did you like that in the show? I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah, I thought that psychological manipulation was great. There's less of that in, say, like the movie than I think there is in the book, but this show really drew that element of the book out to the forefront. Like I
Mm,
said, in a way that I don't think has been done before. Yeah, you get bits and pieces of it, but and again, I think that's also just the nature of what that base story is. Too, is just those kids are, they're kind of destined to sort of have victory over Pennywise in a way that, because this is a prequel that necessitates Pennywise, and they because they do this sort of extra thing with the barrier breaking, right? And then he comes back out after the feeding cycle is over for like an extra finale sort of thing. But like for all intents and purposes, this is a story about Pennywise winning and like accomplishing its feeding cycle.
Mm, yeah. So I thought that was really good that they added that kind of wrinkle to it of how it kind of yeah, like it plays with kind of people there. And they even have a moment, kind of like in Lord of the Rings where, I mean, well, in Lord of the Rings, I mean, you have Sam. I mean, he doesn't put the ring on, but he does carry him. And here they actually take the rock from her and go like, okay, we'll pass it around so we can distribute it, so we can do that. And then, we'll talk about the final scene what they do that with. The To go back to the military stuff there, that plot, I was kinda just mainly interested in it for Dick Halloran and just to
Yeah,
see kinda more him. I think he's the kinda key to it because he's their, like, big weapon against, it and finding out because he has, people they find out he has these ESP psychic abilities there, and we see him use it. And we see him in his, mind prism, as they call it, or whatever there, and him having these kinda psychic battles with it. And the actor who plays Dick Halloran in this is an actor named Chris Chalk there. People might have seen him. He was in your favorite show. He was in Gotham. He was Lucius Fox in that.
he was.
Um, he was there. He was also in the Newsroom. He was also in Perry Mason, the new edition of Perry
Mm.
Mason, not the older. I mean, he'd be a lot older there, but he was in that as well. Yeah, but he's been some things here and there, and I've seen him, and he's really great here. I love him. There's and he's not the Dick Halloran that you've seen from like The Shining, because the Dick Halloran in The Shining is more friendlier, more a little bit more happier, I guess, in a sense there.
He's learned how to deal with his issues.
Yeah, here he's still pretty troubled and everything like that. But yeah, how did you like his character?
Oh, I really liked him. I thought he was one of the best parts of the show, and I thought it was a nice touch. There's a scene where the military is needs him to interrogate someone and kind of go into their mind, and I really liked that they gave the Dick Halloran character even a slight, somewhat maybe kind of sinister side in that moment, like where he's invading someone's mind and like causing this massive amount of pain to pull information out of them. And sort of the way that the kind of the presentation of that scene, I thought I was like, oh, that's cool that he's got this like dark side to him that maybe I think we've never seen before. I really, really liked that. And he's what, yeah, him. And then, I mean, I liked the parents, like, as parents and how they interacted with the kids as well. And so I liked that part of like the military part of the story being present within the series overall. I'd say that really where the military stuff kind of fell apart for me was just specifically James Remar and his motivation for what he's doing. And in a large sense, I think the military stuff in here, it feels like a giant riff on Project Arrowhead, which is the military experiment that rips open a dimensional tear and causes the story in the book The Mist to happen.
Okay, and timeline wise, when does that happen? And where?
Uh, God, I think The Mist happens. Well, the movie made it present day, but the book happens, I think, when it was written. So, like 78, 79, I want to say.
Okay, and when was it? It was written in the 80s, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, and it was written in the 80s, and so the like Losers Club, I believe, takes place. The adult portion takes place in the 80s, and when they're kids is in the 50s. So the movie adaptation that this show is then connecting to is the timeline's all off because in the movies the kid portion was the 80s and then the adult portion was present day. So these adaptations are definitely timeline wise very different, but you know.
okay, so we're gonna get another It reboot. So and then the preview is gonna be them in like the early 2000s, and then it's gonna be them in like the 2040s. Is gonna be the present day.
It's
Um,
like it's like Superman or comic book adaptations where like they've always kind of got to move a certain part of it to take place today.
Yeah, like Punisher used to fight in the Vietnam War, but now he has to fight in the Iraq War. He was an
Yeah.
Iraq War veteran. Yeah. Yeah. So you got that element there. I like that. And that's the interrogation scene you mentioned was really good because he left the guy like kind of slobbering all over himself and the how far and deep he kind of went into his mind there with that. And there's a point where, he squares off against it. I think that's the episode where they go into like the tunnels, right? They go into the sewers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then he does that, and then it releases the box and releases all the stuff that he had put away there, and it's left him kind of a mess.
And if you
And
know sort of the greater backstory from like the books and stuff of the Dick Halloran character and like what is like what that significance of his grandfather appearing in that vision is, that's dark. That's some dark stuff.
okay, interesting. Yeah, because it seemed like I didn't know if that was Pennywise creating this more horrific version, or that was actually more really his childhood or anything
It's a
like that.
combination of the two. Like that, like the grandfather speaking to him in the scene we saw absolutely is Pennywise having shapeshifted into something Dick is afraid of. Like that absolutely is Pennywise in that moment. But opening that box, because and they that's actually something they show in Doctor Sleep. They show Dick teaching Danny how to sort of have this mental box and to sort of lock away certain fears, right? So they can't kind of and spirits, so they can't interfere in his like everyday life as much. But I'll just say that like Dick was like very, very, uh, very abused by his grandfather in both physical and sexual ways, and that his grandmother was kind of the person that tried to stand up for him, and then of course was also physically abused. And so that flashback is pulling on a lot of like very dark corners of his childhood.
Interesting. Okay, interesting there. And like I said, we're gonna get more with obviously the prequels have announced there. Does this show supposed to connect with Mike Flanagan's doing, or no, that's some
No, because that's all going to be on Amazon.
okay, got
So
you. Okay.
they can't make any official like crossover, although there's allusions to it to the wider universe. I mean, obviously Dick Halloran being a character, that's a big thing, but the way that barrier is like the alignment of it and kind of like what it looks like from like a bird's eye view map, it's very much meant to sort of represent the structure of the Dark Tower,
Mm,
and kind of how that works. Because in part of the thing with the Dark Tower is there's like 12 guardians that hold up the beams of the tower, and the turtle god Maturin that vomited up the universe that it takes place in, and then also is essentially the creator of the it being unintentionally as well. Um, Maturin is one of those guardians, and then in the show when they do dig up that piece of the barrier from the ground, it's like inside of a turtle shell. So it's very much this kind of visual allusion to how the Dark Tower works, but I don't think they could actually talk about the Dark Tower directly in the show.
okay. So the beams there, so are they separate universe or is it just one universe?
Uh no, so the Dark Tower is literally the beams of the Dark Tower literally hold up the multiverse. And
Okay,
the
the
and
multi.
the
Okay.
Dark Tower takes place in a world called Midworld, sort of a Midgard, like Norse mythology reference. And you can physically go to this Dark Tower in this place, and it is this weird fantasy world. And then you can use the Dark Tower to step in and out of various realities, which is what Randall Flagg, the villain in The Stand, is doing. But it very much, which is closer to our world, right, that it is taking place in, and that The Shining takes place in, and Carrie takes place in, and all these stories. That specific universe is a universe that was created by the turtle, and like the turtle literally vomited up this reality,
Okay.
and that's where all that happens. And but it is just one of many universes that is connected to the Dark Tower.
Okay. Didn't an animated show do that where like a turtle did that or did vomit up or
Well, the idea of like a world turtle and like that, like the turtle being sort of this great cosmic being is like ancient Chinese mythology has that idea. I don't know if that's like the very first version of it, or if maybe some other even older mythologies might have that, but it goes back like a very long time just in
Mm,
general in like mythology and history to this idea. So I don't know necessarily what Stephen King was looking at when he was like, oh, I'm going to do a version of this, but it's definitely been around.
okay. I was just thinking in my mind if I've seen that in a cartoon before, a turtle doing that, like spitting up a universe or something. I was
I
thinking
feel
maybe
like you probably have, but I'd be surprised if that hasn't popped up anywhere else.
yeah. So yeah, a lot of lore to explore with here, and interesting. We talked about the kids, so I don't know if they're gonna do like how much can we see like another group of plucky young kids, try to take down Pennywise. Are we gonna see
Yep.
that in the version from 1935 and the version from like 1908? Are we gonna have another kind of version of that? That'd be
I think
interesting.
you have to have a group of kids in some capacity, just because I don't know. I mean, I know it maybe is sticking to a formula, but I also just think, like, as an example, you take it chapter one, it chapter two. When you move to like purely a story about adults dealing with this creature, it it inherently becomes less interesting if that is the totality of it. Uh, and I think this show did a good job of like having like some stuff with adults and some stuff with kids. So I think we'll see a mix of it. But I think like say season three at least, because they have said it's going to be just the three seasons. Like they've got a very specific 1, 2, 3 plan, and that'd be it. But season three, I think you might really get into like the Bob Gray figure and stuff, which we got teased with here a bit. But that's a big part of the books that I think season three may revolve almost wholly around.
Okay, interesting. Um, And I wonder in all the different ways he can play this character Pennywise to make him more intimidating. Like you say, if we do see more seasons there of it. This was, I thought, a really strong show. Thought it was really good. I thought it paid off in far as the horror elements of it. Even from the first episode, like the scene in the car is
Mm-hmm.
like really
It
well
pretty much
done.
opens with it,
Yeah, I thought that that was really well done and what they do with that. I thought the performances across the board are really good there. And they're not doing a thing where they're going to do 5 seasons with these kids, so they don't have to see them get older and maybe turn into
right?
bad actors. And we got them good. They casted well, and sometimes that can be maybe a hit or miss sometimes with kid actors. And I
And
think
they
they
look like kids the whole time too. You won't have to be like, yeah, you're 25.
Yeah, they do. They got actual kids for this, which kind of works there, and then they have to do a lot of good emotional heavy lifting in this show throughout it there, and I think they do that a really great job at it. Everybody across the board there, and it's almost like they almost upshine. I think a lot of the adult actors in this as well. Um, and the main adult actors that you really follow, I think Taylor Page and Chris Chalk really do a great job here, adult wise, because the three that you really follow mainly is Chris Chalk, Taylor Page, and Javon Adepo. There are really the main adults that you follow. Um, I think all that works really, really well in this.
Did you catch that just because they showed it there, the racist cop that's going after Ronnie's dad, that's the grandfather of the bully in it.
Oh, I did not catch that.
Yeah, that's the
Okay.
grandfather, and so his son is like the shitty abusive dad to the bully in the first movie.
Ah, interesting. I did not catch that. Okay, very good there. And also for people who are big things and people, that's also a thing. I'm glad you brought that up of Easter eggs. That's always a big thing and stuff now. Like how many Easter eggs can we fit into the show and references and everything. And I think this is one of the example that does it correctly. Of like you just pointed out, it's not something super in your face there. It's just something
Yeah,
that's part of the story. And it works naturally with the story there of it, just how Dick Halloran has worked naturally into the story. He has a more expanded role on here, but he fits given what he's there. It's not just like, oh, hey, it's Dick Halloran and he's from The Shining. Let's just bring him in here just because he's from The Shining. It's like he actually has a good role to purpose to serve here in that. And
yeah, it's
yeah.
just a great example of like if Easter eggs are your concern and you're just putting them in there, willy nilly, just so you can get people to kind of notice them and be nostalgic about something, you're doing it wrong. Like you need to have a good story, and then pepper some connections through based on whether it makes sense for them to be there or not. But yeah, I mean, a lot of entertainment today, let's Avengers, are so consumed with just making references so people will remember the thing they're referencing. But I don't think this does that at all. I think all these pieces feel, they feel like they're there for a reason. And the only thing that doesn't quite click, which is James Remar's character, that's not an Easter egg or a reference to anything. He's just an insane person with no reason for what he's doing.
Yeah, and they do even do kind of, I guess, make him a little bit try to make him sympathetic, or they give a backstory to him, and
I liked that earlier on in those earlier episodes that I thought like, oh, maybe he will have more of a character. And then as it went on, I was like, oh no, that was just to trick me. That he didn't have shit going on. This guy's just insane.
yeah, to show that he had like an earlier encounter with it,
Yeah.
there, and he
Yeah, he
actually
saw that and he was like, that thing should run for office. It'd be great.
yeah, I guess he's a fan, man. He's like, "Oh, man, this guy, he knows what he's doing."
I just
Uh,
it's a really silly moment. Like I really don't think I can impress just how silly it comes across because there's a moment in the action of things where Dick Haller he's using his shining power to sort of temporarily distract Pennywise, and it's one of the greatest like reaction gifts I think of all time is Pennywise waking up, at the time of Bob Gray and like looking around, not knowing, that's a really great little moment. But then, well, Pennywise in the real world is like frozen, stuck in that delusion for temporarily, and James Remar sees Pennywise stuck and runs out. And he's like, "Oh my god, are you okay? Trust me, we'll get whoever did this to you, man. Like you're gonna get out of here. It's gonna be like it's just very weird." And I again really like the show overall, but that stuck out to me as just being like kind of bizarre the way that all played out.
he's got some good reaction. Like you mentioned that one where Dick Halloran's in his mind there. That's a good reveal. Like when he finds out it is Dick, that's a good reveal there. Tricky, Dickie says there.
Yeah. And then
Um,
also, one thing we haven't mentioned as much is, I've mentioned Bob Gray, but the Bob Gray's daughter, right, of the real Pennywise, who is another character in the show, which I think is done interestingly. I guess I want to see more of her, and I think we'll get more of her in future seasons. But yeah, that's an amazing look. Uh, but she has an interesting role here too, where she sort of seems to believe that something is possessing her father rather than like stole his appearance entirely. It seems to think that like there's like a demon in him, but like there's still him in there somewhere, and that she can kind of connect to that. And so of course Pennywise, uses that and manipulates that to kind of get her to bring him food, right? But there's a scene near the end where she like even hugs him, and Pennywise is like, kind of, I'll play along for now because you bring me food. But when she can't see Pennywise's face and he is giving her a hug, you just see him make this like the idea of the feeling of love is like going to make him throw up. Like he literally
mm,
finds that vile, like that the other emotions like that or positive emotions physically are it make it ill.
Was that the scene where they do the flashback? Was in the black and white, where it's like,
No, I'm talking about the scene at the end of episode 7 after the black spot stuff happens
oh, that's okay when that happens there, because I
because he
remember.
hugs her and he's just like
Because I remember what sticks out in my memory about that one with her and him, because like you said, I was gonna bring that up. Yeah, that's thank you for transitioning to that. Of how like she, is the daughter there, and that's the same woman from It Chapter 2, right?
Yes, which book readers after that movie came out were like, "Oh yeah, I think this was supposed to be Bob Gray's daughter." But if you were just watching the movies, the whole backstory of Bob Gray and that had never been adapted before. So I think general audiences just thought it was a creepy old lady and like didn't really have any meaning to it. But there even in the movie at the time, there was some intention there of it being that character.
Okay. Yeah, and what sticks out is like when she's, you know what I mean? He's like, "Okay, I'm gonna go to sleep now. I've done my thing. I'm gonna go hibernate and do that thing." And she grabs him, and then the look he gives when she grabs him, and then he turns around.
Bitch, did
Um,
you just touch me?
yeah, I mean, it's a that's a good look there. But yeah, I mean, you just see that. I mean, I don't know why she would still think it's her. I mean, she just saw him just eat a bunch of people, and she ate a little bit. I
Right.
don't know. I
I
mean,
mean, I can kind of get where she thinks it's like a demon is possessing my father, but there's enough in him that recognizes me, so I'll like placate its behavior because I'm hoping it'll give him back. I think that's the idea.
yeah,
Like she
and
recognizes there's another entity at play, but she thinks it's like this mixture rather than just being this other thing.
Mm. And episode 7, heartbreaking episode, probably
Yeah.
one of my favorite episodes of, the season there besides the, final episode. What would you say is your favorite episode of this?
I think the second to last is probably the best. I think the filmmaking during the black spot, and I think if you watch it on HBO, they have like a special feature too, where they go into some of the how they filmed it and how they made a bunch of it like this one continuous take, and how they actually had to like.
Or they didn't have to do it for 12 hours and do all them different things? That
No, it
doesn't
sounds like it went a lot faster than that
they didn't do
actually.
that? Okay. I had
But they did have. I mean, they had something like 40 actors actually were setting fires, and they were doing it in one take. So like they're like watching them the behind the scenes for that was really interesting because they. I mean I think is on a technical level the most impressive piece of filmmaking maybe in the entire show. Just how much like had to happen logistically for that to work, and then also kind of interesting that would come out in the same year as Sinners.
Mm, yeah, that works really well, a lot of what they did. Yeah, that was a, horrific scene, but also the way it was shot and everything like that, was also really amazing, with that there. But again, referenced in, like I said, more context, in the book there, because I didn't know where that was leading to at first,
Mhm.
and then when they actually do the full, like, name of it, the juke joint, I was like, "Oh, this is what it's gonna turn into," and that because I didn't remember it from, that section of it from the book there. Um, yeah, this is a wonderful show. Then I don't want to pit, you know, it and Stranger Things against each other, and some people going like,
Because Stranger Things wouldn't have a chance.
yeah. I mean, I do think this is better than season 5 of, what Stranger Things was, and I think it has a better conclusion there for what this is and the story. And that moment, like I said, very horrific moment in episode 7, and then Richie makes a heroic sacrifice and lets her, keep her spot in like this cooler there so she can be protected from the fire. Marge
I did
and
question that was like a metal box. I did question a little bit if you would not just kind of cook
mm,
someone by putting them in a metal box. So that it's a small thing. It doesn't really get in the way of enjoying like the storytelling going on. But I did stop and think like that looks like a metal box. I don't think
mm,
that would work.
yeah, like she would just kind of melt inside, or like the metal would melt,
Yeah,
or
it's
yeah.
a little bit Indiana Jones surviving a nuclear blast by getting in a fridge. So
Mm.
this is a tiny bit of that.
Yeah. Do you think that, this is better than the movies, you think?
I think it's by far better than the second film. Um, I think the first one is quite good. I think this might have a little bit of an edge over the first film, just because I think because of its like more intense horror presentation that I just think it's able to go farther. It's able to kill more people on screen. It's able to just be a little more dangerous feeling. I think the show has that edge. Um, I still think that chapter one film is a very tight, just individual standalone movie. But this does do a lot to rival it.
Okay. Yeah. What will be your final thoughts? Rating it. Welcome to Dairy.
Yeah, man, I really enjoyed this. I got the just every week it was something to really look forward to for a bit there. I would give it I give it a low peak, um, like kind of bordering on like just like a high tune in low peak. I think it's really great. And the only thing that pulls it down from maybe just a full normal peak is I think some of the military stuff feels very goofy by
Uh,
the end, and their sort of logic of the barrier thing and like how that doesn't totally match up with I just me knowing that creature to not want to leave in the first place or care about leaving. So to have sort of a climax that revolves around, well, obviously, if we break this thing trapping it here, it's going to immediately want to leave. That feels a little disconnected from what I know this creature to be and its behavior to be. But again, I think those are relatively minor complaints in the bigger picture here. I think 85% of this show works fantastic.
mm, yeah. The only real issue I have with the show is, not really so much the barrier stuff, but like, I mean, it's kind of like you bring up Stranger Things and like they have a whole military thing with the town's under military occupation.
Yeah.
And they do a thing where it's like, well, the town just kind of just the military just packed up and left. After that, all that happened, they just they just kind
Right.
of left. And it's kind of here the military they do the same thing. And it's kind of like, oh well, they just kind of left town, you know. And I'm like, and Giovanni Depo's character, it's kind of like, well, I had to, they just discharged me because you know they're like, okay, keep my mouth shut, and they'll just discharge me and get out and fine. I'm like, I don't know, I feel like they just probably have you killed, but
Right.
you know, and probably just kill your family, but.
I think it would have worked better if maybe they had just even just one scene of maybe Dick is the one to tell him, but like, hey man, turns out James Remar, that dude was a lunatic, and all of his superiors did not know what he was doing. So like we're getting medals for getting that guy out of here, or something
Mm.
like that. I don't know, just something to be like, also for the show to internally acknowledge how ridiculous James Remar's character really was too, because I feel like yeah, the characters are like, oh, that's a bad thing to want to do, but I don't think anybody quite has the reaction that I had, where I'm just like, what are you talking about? This doesn't even make sense. Like, your idea is gibberish.
Mm, yeah. Eventually, Joan Dipples. I mean, he caught on eventually. It took him a little minute. He
It
caught
did.
on there. There, and his. Yeah, I mean, I like the conflict with him and his wife because his wife is an activist there, so she's part
Right.
of. You know, she said she's worked with other activists there and does a lot of that stuff that layer. So that conflicts with him, and you know, he's trying to just keep this military life and everything like that. So I liked a lot of the back and forth that they had with that. Um, but yeah, I greatly enjoyed this. I do think it is better than the movies, you know, but not by much. I think the movies are very strong. It chapter one and it chapter two. But like I said, more of the episodes, I think Pennywise is scarier here. I think the group of kids, you get to see more of them and how more of them are terrified of this creature there. And they're also dealing with a lot of this, you know, personal turmoil there. Maybe a little bit more than what the kids were dealing with in the It chapter one there. Cause I mean, you do have the Lily character, you know, her mental instability. You know, you do have Ronnie and her father there, and of course, you do have Will and what he's kind of dealing with in this town as well. They're both of them racially there, so there's also that element there with that. Um, so yeah, you do have that, and that you know, like I said, really dramatic sacrifice there that Rich makes there, which is also very emotional. And seeing kind of at the end where you kind of place the pieces on the board or where character's going to be. Because I think with the Ronnie character, I was looking at something. They said her character's supposed to, or her, or another character supposed to connect to somewhere else or something.
They
Um,
might. There's so many Stephen King books. It's possible that there's like another bridge somewhere that I'm not remembering, but that one at least is not one that I picked up on necessarily.
Yeah, because the Mike's family, Will's family, they stay there, of course, because he has to stay there in order to get married and have Mike and all
Yeah.
that stuff.
One
Uh,
thing too, I wonder, how did you buy their sort of them changing their mind and staying? What did you think of how they sort of presented that? Did it seem organic to you?
um, I didn't think so. I thought they'd be like, "Come on, let's get the fuck." I mean, you know, that's nice. I mean, because like I said, the woman, I forgot the character's name, the Native American woman.
Rose,
But
I think.
Rose was okay.
Yeah.
Rose, who I think I've seen that actress before. I've seen her in some other things. Um, But yeah, she's kinda like because of the feeding cycle, you know, Pennywise, he's gonna return and somebody needs to be here to, you know, warn other people and to do that thing. So people being there, does that really do I mean, who do stay in the town, do they do warn other people or they do try to prevent it? Because well, we do see in chapter 2 that Mike, he does stay there and he does call the other losers to come back so they
Yeah.
can fight it again. So I guess it does happen there.
I
Um,
think that it depends on the person. The minds of the kids, like Mike in the original It story, they, because there's a somewhat of a like shining effect on them. I think they're more impervious to the brain fog that Pennywise can kind of put on people. But generally, I think even if you stay in the town, because they make a thing of like, if you leave, you forget what happened. But I think if you stay there, Pennywise is sort of like kind of area of effect, sort of forgetfulness. I think that at least my understanding is that applies to people and can, probably is the reason why those characters, as the grandparents in the story, still are not as aware of things as they necessarily should be, you know?
Okay, interesting. But yeah, and yeah, seeing where it's kind of things gonna be there. But yeah, I'd give this a strong peak for me there for this. I really love this a lot there. And I was good also. It seemed like it was a good water cooler show, releasing every week. A lot of people
Yeah.
talking about it online, a lot of people going like, "Oh, did you see what happened in this episode? And this happened in this episode?" So I don't know how well it did. Have you seen how well it did ratings wise, the numbers there? I
I
haven't
know
seen
that
them.
its premiere had, I think, broke a record or two, but I don't know about the whole show.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know ratings wise how it did there. But I think it was when I would looked on HBO Max, when I would go click on the show, it was like top 10 of like things on there, I think. So yeah. So a low peak from you, strong peak from me, for it Welcome to Dare. And I just cut off that it was in the trailer that there's some, like I said, really good horror mode. Like that scene with Ronnie and the mother, and like that's a
Mhm.
really great scene. And
Yeah,
most of it was practical, yeah.
and I would honestly recommend watching all of the episodes behind the scenes featurette type stuff that they have at the end on the HBO service. Really cool stuff. But like actually seeing like the big puppet and everything that the like puppet body they build onto the mother to like make her bigger, and it really good stuff. Like really cool. If you're just like into effects work or like learning about that stuff at all, there's some very cool stuff to see in there.
Yeah. The only thing I'm seeing here is like It Welcome There episode 7 hit 5.8 million viewers across HBO and HBO Max in the first 3 days of availability.
That seems
Um,
really high for horror to me, because horror's
uh,
inevitably got like that's a smaller total audience, right? That you can count to show up for it. So that seems pretty big.
it says according to Warner Brothers Discovery, It Welcome to There ranks among the three biggest series debuts ever on HBO Max, coming behind
There you go.
video game adaptation Last of Us and Game of Thrones spinoff series House of the Dragon.
Hmm.
Okay.
All
So,
right.
yeah. So, that was our review for It Welcome to Derry.